As you know, the history of the Turkic peoples is full of great victories, defeats, and mysteries. But what do we know about the mysterious Oghuz, who once created a powerful state in the vastness of Central Asia? These nomads not only united dozens of tribes, but also became the ancestors of such great states as the Seljuk Empire. How did their state emerge? What is the secret of their influence? And what remains of this once powerful people? Let me remind you, you're on the Amazing History channel, a channel for those who truly love history. And today I will continue the series of episodes dedicated to ancient nomadic peoples. Before I continue, please don't forget to support the channel through sponsorship on YouTube or Patreon. I would also appreciate your likes, subscriptions, and of course, your kind comments. And now, let's get to the topic of this episode. The origin of the Oghuz traces back to the early Turkic tribes that formed in the steppes of Central Asia, in the territory of present-day Mongolia, Kazakhstan, and northwestern China. The name Oghuz is presumably connected to the term Oke, which means arrow or tribe, and the suffix uz, indicating plurality. Oghuz means many arrows or tribes, reflecting their confederative nature. Their origins trace to the Turkic Khaganate, where their ancestors were significant. After the Khaganate fell in the 8th century, 24 Oghuz clans began migrating west. This process was caused by internal conflicts and pressure from other Turkic groups, such as the Seljuks. After reaching the area of the Aral Sea and the Sirdarya, they formed a new confederation known as the Oghuz Yabgu state. After reaching the area of the Aral Sea and the Sirdarya, they formed a new confederation known as the Oghuz Yabgu state. What was this state like? As I already mentioned, it was a union of 24 tribes, which in turn were divided into two wings, Bozok and Uchok. According to the legend recorded by the Persian historian Rashid ad-Din, this division goes back to the legend of the golden bow and the three arrows, which were found by the 6 sons of the mythical Oghuz Khan. The bow was given to the elder sons so that they could divide it among themselves, and they were called Bozok, which literally means those who broke it into pieces. And the arrows were given to the youngest sons, who were called Uchok, meaning 3 arrows. Some of the well-known Oghuz tribes included Kai, Bayat, Bayandir, Kanik, and Ovshar. Some of these tribes would later play a significant role in the formation of various Turkic states, which we will talk about a little later. One very important tribe was the Pechenegs, who apparently left the Confederation in the 9th century and moved further west in search of a new home. The Oghuz tribes were united by a common culture, language, and system of governance, but they maintained a certain degree of autonomy. They governed their own territories but conducted a common foreign policy and united under the leadership of a ruler with the title Yabgu, who was more of a first among equals than an absolute monarch. This title was inherited from the traditions of the Turkic Khaganate, where it designated something similar to a governor. Interestingly, after the collapse of the Khaganate, the newly formed states one after another began to call their leaders Khagans. Khagan meant as much as emperor, the universal ruler of the nomadic peoples, but the Oghuz did not use this title for their leader. Most likely this is related to the confederative nature of their state, where power was more distributed. The power of the Yabgu was limited by the Council of Elders and traditions. However, in the face of external threats or major military campaigns, his authority was strengthened. The Oghuz were a semi-nomadic people, which distinguished them from many other Turkic tribes. Their way of life involved seasonal migration, spending winters in the warmer southern steppes and moving to summer pastures in the cooler northern regions. This allowed them to efficiently use natural resources and adapt to the harsh climate of Central Asia. Thus, each family of the Oghuz had at least 2 places of residence, which was a characteristic feature of their way of life. As the Oghuz state began to take shape, around the 8th century the Oghuz still lived in yurts, the traditional portable dwellings of nomads. However, over time their life became more settled. They began to build houses and develop cities, the most famous of which was Yangikent, the new city. This city became the capital of the Oghuz state, the residence of the Yabgu, and an important center of trade. In Yangikent, there was the ruler's palace, a large garrison, and bustling bazaars where trade was conducted with neighboring peoples, including the Kimaks on the Irtish. The Sirdarya River played an important role in the economy of the Oghuz, providing river transport to the fertile regions of Mawara Nahar, from where grain was delivered. Caravans carrying cotton, silk, spices, and grain traveled through Yangi Kent along the Great Silk Road. This made the city not only a political but also an economic center of the entire region. In addition to Yangi Kent, archaeological findings indicate the existence of other cities on the territory of the Oghuz, which confirms their gradual transition to a more settled way of life. Despite this, livestock breeding continued to be the foundation of their economy. They bred horses, sheep, and cattle, which provided them with food, clothing, and transportation. The culture of the Oghuz was also renowned for their martial skills, which were characteristic of many Turkic peoples of the steppes. The secret of their success lay in mobility. The semi-nomadic way of life dictated their strategy. The Oghuz learned to be swift, always ready to move or to fight. The Oghuz were excellent horsemen and famous for their archery skills, which made them a formidable force in military encounters. The bows of the Oghuz, made from wood, bone, and sinew, allowed them to hit targets at distances of up to 500 meters. This weapon made them deadly even before the enemy could engage them in close combat. But the Oghuz were also well versed in close combat. They were skilled with sabers, spears, and battle axes. Their elite warriors, including the Yabguz personal guard, wore lamellar armor made of metal plates or leather strips. However, ordinary warriors most often wore only thick clothing, which, although it did not provide serious protection, did not restrict their movements. One of the favorite tactics of the Oghuz was the feigned retreat. The warriors would pretend to flee, luring their pursuers into a prearranged trap. This maneuver allowed them to defeat enemies who outnumbered them more than once. The foundation of ancient Turkic culture was always Tengrism, but by the 8th and 9th centuries, the Turkic world had changed significantly. Some of them began to adapt to new conditions, including adopting world religions. For example, the Khazars in the Caucasus and the Volga region practiced Christianity at different times and then converted to Judaism. The Karakhanids were the first Turks to adopt Islam, which greatly influenced their culture and state. The Uyghurs in the eastern part of Central Asia first adopted Manichaeism and then Buddhism. And what about the Oghuz? For a long time they remained faithful to Tengrism, which matched their semi-nomadic way of life. Living in the steppes and mainly relying on livestock breeding, the Oghuz continued the traditions of their ancestors. This made them closer to the Pechenegs, who, like them, remained adherents of traditional beliefs longer than other Turkic peoples. Tengrism itself is a unique religion based on shamanism and animism. At its core is the veneration of Tengri, the sky god, the supreme deity in the pantheon of the ancient Turks and Mongols. Tengri embodied a benevolent, all-encompassing deity who governed the fate of people. In sources left by Muslim travelers, it is mentioned that before important events or before the start of a battle, the Turks would raise their heads to the sky and shout Bir Tengri, which translates as one god. Although Tengrism originally included elements of polytheism, the Oghuz gradually developed monotheistic beliefs. They became some of the most consistent supporters of the belief in one god among the Turkic peoples. Other features of the Oghuz or Oghuz Turkic way of life certainly include the role of women in the family and in society as a whole. The Arab traveler Ibn Fadlan traveled through the lands of the Oghuz and was shocked by what he saw. The Oghuz do not cleanse themselves from feces or urine. They do not wash themselves after sexual intercourse or anything like that. They do not have anything to do with water at all, especially in winter. Their women do not hide themselves from men or anyone else. In the same way, wives do not cover any parts of their bodies from anyone. Nevertheless, the Oghuz Turks were not isolated from the rest of civilization. Previously, they traded with merchants from foreign lands and were in close proximity to important Silk Road hubs, including the cities of Bukhara, Samarkand, and Atrar. Over time, they integrated aspects of other cultures, such as the use of borrowed words from Persian as well as Islam, which began to spread among the Turkic Oghuz, but at first affected only some tribes. Now let's focus on the political history of the Oghuz. When the Turkic Oghuz settled in the lands between the Amudarya and Sirdarya in the 8th century, they found themselves surrounded by a complex geopolitical situation. A number of neighboring states had already begun fighting for control over the region, and the Oghuz, as a young political force, were forced to find their place among larger players. Their position at the crossroads of nomadic steppes and settled civilizations inevitably led to conflicts with their neighbors. Ibn al-Athir, a 13th century Arab historian, reports that the Turkic Oghuz began migrating to Mawara Nahar during the reign of the Abbasid Caliph al-Mahdi. This period was marked by serious confrontation between the Abbasids and the local tribes of Central Asia, including Tengrists and Zoroastrians. Ibn al-Athir claims that during the rebellion of al-Muqanna, the leader of the anti-Islamic movement in Khorasan, the Oghuz supported him, which confirms their independence from the caliphate during that period. By the way, there is a separate video about this rebellion on this channel, so you can check it out. The history of the Oghuz is also closely intertwined with the Khazar Khaganate. At first, their relations were tense. The Oghuz were subjected to raids by the Khazars, and they also attacked their lands themselves. According to Ibn Fadlan, in the first third of the 10th century, some Oghuz tribes were captured by the Khazars, which indicates their temporary weakness. However, within a few years or decades, the Oghuz, together with the Pechenegs, formed a coalition against the Khazars, launching raids on their territories. Interestingly, despite the conflicts, sometimes the Oghuz became allies of the Khazars. According to one of the surviving Khazar documents, Yabgu of the Oghuz once helped the Khazars repel an attack by the Alans, which was organized at the instigation of Byzantium. This suggests that the Oghuz acted pragmatically, often changing allies depending on the political situation in the West. The Oghuz formed alliances with the Rus to fight against the same Pechenegs, with whom they often competed for pastures and scarce resources. Thanks to this, they were able to inflict a serious defeat on the Pechenegs. This alliance allowed the Oghuz to strengthen their position in the steppes and expand their spheres of influence. However, the nature of these alliances highlights the decentralized character of the Oghuz Confederation. Most likely, individual tribes entered into alliances without being under the direct control of the Yabgu. The research of Peter Golden, an outstanding specialist in Turkic history, confirms that the Oghuz acted more as a loose confederation, where each tribe had its own autonomy. Although the Yabgu was considered the nominal leader of all the Oghuz, there is no evidence that he had real power over all 24 tribes. This makes their history especially interesting. Despite their decentralization, they managed to resist major powers and actively participate in regional politics. The history of the Oghuz gains special significance due to the emergence of the Seljuk dynasty, which played a key role in the fate of the Islamic world. The founder of this dynasty was Seljuk, the leader of the Kinnik tribe, one of the 24 Oghuz tribes. The first mentions of his family date back to the late 10th century. According to later chronicles compiled at the court of the Seljuk sultans, Seljuk's father, Dukak, served as a military commander at the court of the Khazar Khagan. This may mean that the family was located near the Khazar capital Itil, and as part of the local elite could have practiced Judaism, the main religion of the Khazar upper class. The collapse of the Khazar Khaganate in the 960s became a turning point for Seljuk and his followers. The reasons for their migration are shrouded in mystery. Historians suggest that this could have been the result of court intrigues, conflict with the ruling circles, or even the consequences of climate change, which worsened conditions for nomadic livestock herding. Seljuk, together with a small group, left the Khazar steppes and headed east to the region of Gent, on the border of Islamic Khwarezm. Gent, on the Sirdarya, was the Seljuks' initial contact with the Muslim world. Seljuk and his followers also embraced Islam, which became a crucial step for the future of their tribe. Conversion to Islam strengthened the Seljuks' ties with the Islamic community and provided new opportunities for cooperation with other Muslim groups. Seljuk also began to attract Ghazis, Muslim warriors who fought against non-believers, to his movement. This allowed his tribe to expand its influence and create a powerful military force. Over time, the Seljuks achieved a series of victories over the Ghaznavids, a powerful Turkic dynasty that controlled a significant part of Iran and Afghanistan. These successes became the foundation for the creation of the Seljuk Empire. Thus, the Kinnic tribe, once a part of the Oghuz Confederation, became fully independent and transformed itself into one of the greatest dynasties of the Islamic world. By the 11th century, the Oghuz state began to weaken. The main reason was internal strife between the tribes, which made their alliance unstable, especially under external pressure. One of the key factors was the growing threat from the Kipchaks, who began migrating westward from the regions adjacent to the Altai and Irtish. The Kipchaks invaded the lands of the Oghuz, destroying their cities and pushing the tribes out of their usual territories. Gradually, the Kipchak expansion led to the Oghuz losing control over their traditional обитания. The weakening of the central authority of the Yabgu also played its part. While some of the Oghuz tribes remained in place, another part of them began migrating to the south and west. It was during this period that significant migrations of the Oghuz took place, which became a turning point in their history. Some groups settled in Mavaraunar, becoming part of the local population. Others moved toward the Caucasus, and some joined the Seljuks supporting them in military campaigns, including conquests in Iran and Asia Minor. Moreover, by the 11th century, the Islamization of the Oghuz was completed, which brought them closer to their Muslim neighbors and accelerated the process of integration into new cultural and political realities. The Oghuz blended into larger ethno-political formations. Some became part of the Seljuk states, while others came under the control of the Karakhanids. Thus, the Oghuz state disappeared from the political map, but their cultural and ethnic heritage continued to live on among various Turkic peoples, including modern Turkmens, Azerbaijanis, and Turks. The fate of the Oghuz clearly shows how migrations, wars, and cultural shifts can redistribute the influence of an ancient tribal union across entire civilizations. That's it from me. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.
В следующем видео. Пока.